Hey guys, what's up? This is Brian Brown here. Just want to tell you all about this experience that I had in Russia a couple of weeks ago. I thought it is something that is important enough to share. So I was in this little place called Listvyanka. It's right on Lake Baikal. It's a very beautiful place, very famous lake, the deepest in the world. It's very pretty. Anyway, this town, Listvyanka, is a very small little village. Side of the road, I saw something called a zoopark, which is a zoo, right? So, as you might expect, a zoo in a little village in Siberia on the side of the road, they're not going to really pay too terribly much attention to animal welfare standards, quote-unquote animal welfare standards, right? So, I had to investigate, right? So I went in. It was exactly like you should expect a place like that is going to be. A couple of wolves in there with a cage that was about 2 feet in length, so that they had to 2 feet in width, so that they had to contort their bodies just to be able to turn around. The main attraction, the bear cage, was completely rusted. The entire cage was made of rust. There was this layer of frosted piss and shit all over the ground that it was matting up her fur, and there was no covering for her at all. Her bed was this piss and shit covered frosty rusted metal. That was her life. Her entire life was in that small little rusty cage. There were foxes and a rabbit that had a cage that had a floor area of about the size of maybe 2 or 3 shoe boxes, also covered in frost and snow and ice. The rabbit's cage was completely covered in shit. The goat had this orange apparatus that was tied around his horns for some reason. I still have no idea why. So I was taking video of this entire place, which you're seeing in this video, and the dude who was running the place had no issue with that. It was like the entire concept that somebody might have a problem with what they're seeing in this video was completely lost on the guy. Yeah, why wouldn't you want to take a video of this? They're cute little fuzzy animals. Alright, so when I got to St. Petersburg, I got a little bit bored of looking at a bunch of dead one-percenters houses, and so I decided to check out the St. Petersburg Zoo to see if there was a real fundamental difference between the animal welfare standards, as it were, in Listvyanka versus what I would see at what I think is known as the nicest zoo in Russia. What I saw was not really fundamentally different. The only real difference was that the St. Petersburg Zoo had a little bit more money to make it look a little nicer on the surface, but the way that they treated the animals and thought of the animals was essentially the same. The polar bear lived in this pit, this concrete pit. That's the pit. That's where he spent his life. And there's a smaller bear that had this tiny little cage with zero light in it and nothing else in it except for dirt. That was where that polar bear spent his entire life. The cages were covered with ice. They had no bedding at all. It was just concrete. The lions, or the big cats and the lions, were literally going crazy. I mean, when an animal is pacing nervously back and forth through a cage that it can't get out of, that's the sign that the animal is in serious distress, and they were doing that. Obviously, you could tell that the lions were trying to run somewhere, and they were trying to make believe like they were running, but they could not, so they were slinked down, just darting from corner to corner in their 8-foot wide cage. Alright, so that's what I saw in Russia, okay? If you think that I was trying to say something about Russia, I'm not, okay? I don't understand Russia. I was there for a month, and I still don't understand it, and if I still don't understand it, then I promise that you don't either. So please don't take out of this video that I'm trying to say something about Russia, because I'm not. What I am trying to say something about is entertainment animals in general, and really just because this is what I know, entertainment animals in the US and what is considered to be the West. So if you took away from this video that entertainment animals are treated very badly in Russia, and I'm trying to do this, Yulin Dog Festival style call to Russia to improve their animal welfare standards. I am, because they need to do that, but I'm not doing it from a perspective that America or any other Western nation is any better in terms of their overall treatment of or consideration of entertainment animals, because they are absolutely not. Okay, so in the West, in Western circuses, to be specific, they're fundamentally the same as circuses anywhere else, but what in the West they try to do is they try to dress up their enterprises with all of these bullshit proclamations about animal welfare standards and, this strong bond that exists between the animals and the trainers. And it's a giant load of bullshit that should be obvious to anybody who really thinks about it, but it just isn't. If you have what you consider to be the best, just the top-notch animal welfare standards, as it were, consider what it is that you're doing in this enterprise. You're taking animals that do not even belong on this continent, that have ranges of hundreds and hundreds of miles out of their natural habitat, and you're putting them in the back of this metal trailer, and you're carting them all around the interstates in freezing weather, or you're putting them in staging areas on asphalt parking lots in baking heat, and you're forcing them to do tricks so that you can make money off of them. And how strong of a bond exactly do you need to make any of that okay? Who consulted the animals and asked them if they were okay with having that kind of a life? Would you like that kind of a life where somebody is forcing you to, just sit in the back of a metal trailer barely the size of your own body and be carted through the interstate with no protection from the elements, and sit in these asphalt staging areas while people gawk at you, and, then be forced under threat of violence to do these idiot tricks so that, these slack-jawed onlookers can gawk at you and, give the people who are enslaving you a bunch of money to watch you do it? Does that seem like there's anything? Does that seem like anybody is considering your welfare in that? Does anybody really think that they would have a strong bond with somebody who's doing that to them? And let's also consider the types of animals that they use in these circuses, like lions and tigers. You guys know what a tiger is, right? A tiger is an animal that has it's an apex predator. It's an animal that would not think twice about ripping your face off if you look at it funny. All right, that's a tiger's instinct. Okay, it's an apex predator. How exactly do you think that a tiger, an apex predator, can be convinced to jump through flaming hoops and do whatever it is that some scrawny little weakling with a bullwhip says without clawing his face off? If you think that that was done by any means other than physical violence and threat thereof, then I got a timeshare to sell you, okay? Use your brain, okay? That's under the greatest of animal welfare standards. Let's not even consider the fact that all of these enterprises completely just ignore any animal welfare standards that they themselves claim to profess. The industry standard, the methodology of a circus by itself, just by its own definition of its practice, what about it makes you think that business is in any way humane? What about it possibly could be? It's slavery. Everybody wants to feel like they care about animals, or that they're doing the right thing for animals, or at the very least that they're not hurting animals or facilitating other people hurting animals. But the fact that they want to feel that way is usually the extent. Corporations of any variety, and circuses are no different, they know how to market to people, and they know how to tap into people's feelings. And so they say all this nonsense about animal welfare standards, and they say all this nonsense about this, strong bond between animals and their trainers. Or it's a farm, then animals and the farmers who are going to string them up by their hind legs and cut their throats. And people believe it. Why? Because they want to. Because that's the easiest way for them to feel good about themselves. It's the easiest way for them to believe that they're not doing anything that's harming an animal. Because if they went so far as to not believe the bullshit that the circuses and the big agricultural companies and the other corporations that abuse animals say about their own practices, that of course they have a vested interest in making people believe is okay, if people went so far as to not believe that, then all of a sudden they would have to do something, right? They would have to do something different. They would have to decide to eat something else other than, the flesh of a tortured animal, or they would have to find some other way to spend 2 hours of their time other than, a circus where some sad, abused animal jumps through a hoop a couple of times for, $30 a ticket. So what I'm saying here is that, yeah, I saw this stuff in Russia and it was pretty bad, but at least there wasn't any bullshit attached to it. All right? At least it wasn't dressed up with this silly bullshit veneer of animal welfare and of, a strong bond between, the zookeepers who, put them in these lightless, torture dens. And we in the West, at least today, we've kind of become pretty used to the idea that corporations lie to us literally all the time. We're quite used to that idea. It's not a surprise to us anymore. And so why on earth would we believe anything that a corporation who is known for abusing animals has to say about its own animal welfare policies, when their own animal welfare practices are hidden under layers and layers and layers of security? I mean, if you try to procure a video of how Ringling used to train their elephants and their tigers, I mean, you would be met with, security guards with guns in your face, and what exactly was it that they were trying to hide? And yet people would believe all the time that, they had this strong bond with the trainers, so much so that Hugh Jackman starred in a movie glorifying P.T. Barnum, after thousands of crazy animal rights activists like yours truly, protested out in the streets for, decades longer than I have been at it, and got it shut down, thank God. I'm kind of going a little over on my scope here, but, I think what I'm trying to say is use your head, guys. Don't believe a bunch of bullshit just because it's easy to believe it, and because believing it means that you don't have to do anything different. Use your head and try to make out what the truth really is. When you're dealing with a system whose entire purpose is to make money and to cut costs, then you should be very skeptical about the practices that are used to procure whatever good or service it is that you're consuming. And if you're asking whatever company it is to police their own practices themselves, then you really need to be prepared to be disappointed with the results. And you need to take responsibility for the consumption of whatever it is that they're selling for yourself, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And, it's not going to be from a top-down approach, all right? Because those companies are going to keep on existing, and they're going to do the exact same things they've been doing all along, as long as you keep paying money for them to do it. And so don't pay them to do it. That's the end of that.